What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats of the weapons in Call of Duty Vanguard, and in today's episode we are going to be covering the brand new laser weapon. This is the EX1. And this one is going to be laid out a little bit different from my previous gun guides, because this gun is very different compared to the others, but we're going to start it off on the same page at least with our damage profile. And as we can see here, we deal very little damage per shot, but this gun does have the highest fire rate by far in the entire game, so don't write it off immediately here. But we do deal 15 damage to the torso up close and 9 at a distance, and that will be the same for head and neck damage, which means headshots and neck shots are basically useless. As for our rate of fire, this is 1,500 rounds per minute, so while it looks like you're firing a steady laser stream, the way this is coded, you're actually just firing rounds really quickly. And it's also worth noting, there is a slight charge up time when you pull the trigger before it actually starts shooting. This is kind of like an open bolt delay that we saw from Modern Warfare. And as far as I can tell with hand testing, this appears to be a roughly 100 millisecond charge up delay. As for our raw time to kill potential, keeping in mind this doesn't include that charge up time, this is 240 milliseconds up close, which is not bad. That's relatively competitive if we aren't factoring in that charge up time, of course. And then at a distance, it's 440 milliseconds, which is a fairly steep drop off. As for a bullet velocity, this one's quite interesting and definitely not like the other assault rifles. This gun is effectively hit scan because its bullet velocity is so ridiculously fast. Then getting into ranges, our maximum damage range with that 240 millisecond time to kill extends out to 34 meters by default, and then beyond that, it's going to take you 440 milliseconds to kill. And when we get into hardcore game modes, normally I wouldn't show time to kill, I just show number of shots to kill here, but with this one, it's a bit of an exception. Up close, we're technically killing in just 2 shots to the torso, neck, or head, which gives us a time to kill potential of 40 milliseconds, which may as well be instant. That's basically like a one-shot kill. And then after the damage drop off, it's a 4-shot kill with a 120 millisecond time to kill. And with that, let's move on to hipfire versus aim down sight with this gun. And you'll notice with the hipfire spread, it's very tight and it also doesn't increase with movement like you would normally see with guns. So you can hipfire very effectively with this. However, I did want to point out, as you're hipfiring, there still is some spread, and I kind of draw a circle with my hipfire spread here. You may be able to see just that faint circle on the wall. That's kind of what happens when you hipfire, so it's not perfectly accurate, and like across the map, you don't want to be hipfiring. And then when you aim down sight, you'll notice that you have a much more steady stream where it's more accurate, and you get more vertical recoil with that, which is super easy to control. So it's pretty simple. Up close and personal, hipfire is totally fine with this gun, but at mid to longer ranges, that's when you want to start integrating aiming down sight. Now finally, for the base stats of this gun, I did want to point out a very interesting characteristic, and that is, while this gun technically has kind of like a magazine, or in this case a battery charge, where you still will run out and have to reload, it technically has infinite reserve ammo. So you'll never run out of ammo completely with this gun, but you still do have to reload it. And speaking of reload, I did want to point out the standard reload time, if the EX1 isn't empty, is 2.4 seconds, whereas if you fire it all the way to empty, it's now going to take you 2.9 seconds. So it's generally in your best interest to manually reload the gun before running it completely out, because 500 extra milliseconds in Call of Duty can definitely mean the difference between life and death. And with that, that pretty much covers it for the base stats of this gun, but now I want to get into the barrels, and some of these barrels completely change how this gun works, so we are going to be getting into a lot more depth than normal here. In either case, let's start this off with our ranges, and as you can see there, we've got a wide range of shots to kill as well as ranges with these barrels. Basically, any barrel that changes the fire mode of the gun to either burst, semi-auto, or sniper will increase our ranges, whereas the DIM uproot short barrel will be reducing our range a little bit. And diving a bit deeper, let's have a look at the first barrel. Now this one doesn't really fundamentally change how the gun works. However, the big upside to this is it completely eliminates that charge up time when you pull the trigger. And in many gunfights, this will effectively shave off 100 milliseconds from your practical time to kill with this gun. And as a result, this is an excellent choice to be using if you're planning on sticking to the standard firing mode. Now this does come at the cost of worse handling and mobility, but I feel like that's worth it for saving that extra 100 milliseconds in most gunfights that you find yourself in. As for the second barrel, this is the one that converts the gun into a 3-round burst, and it also completely changes up the damage profile, so it's now going to be a 3 to 4 shot kill. It's also worth noting with this, we once again have 0 charge up time, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Our rate of fire within the burst is about 650 rounds per minute with a 150 millisecond burst delay, and that gives us a time to kill potential of 184 milliseconds if you can get a 1 burst kill, whereas if you require that second burst, it's going to take you 417 milliseconds. And overall, I would say with the burst barrel on this, it's not terrible, it's absolutely usable, but it is relatively unforgiving due to that burst delay. As for the third barrel, this is yet another barrel that doesn't change the firing mode of this gun or anything. And unlike the first barrel, it doesn't eliminate your charge up time, but it does cut down on it to roughly 60 milliseconds based on my hand testing. So it almost cuts your charge up time in half, which is quite nice. However, it is less accurate and it has a noticeably shorter range profile as well, in exchange for better handling and mobility. Now, if you're playing on small maps or something and you're really aggressive and most of your gunfights are right up close and personal, I'd say this is a pretty decent choice. But generally speaking, I would rather take the first barrel option that completely eliminates that charge up time, even though my handling and mobility won't be as fast. Moving on, let's get into the fourth barrel, and this is the one that converts the gun into a semi-auto. And once again, this also eliminates our charge up time completely, so the gun will fire the moment you pull the trigger, and it's now going to be a 3 to 4 shot kill in semi-auto. Now, our rate of fire cap is 521 rounds per minute, which is generally going to be faster than the average person can keep up with their trigger finger. But if you can keep up with that, our time to kill potential is 230 milliseconds up close and 345 milliseconds at longer ranges. However, we don't really have to worry about those longer ranges typically because our range value is really, really good with this, and the vast majority of your gunfights will fall within that 3-shot kill range. Overall, I'd say this is not a bad semi-auto at all. I have been enjoying using this gun in semi-auto so far, but at the same time, it's not necessarily the best semi-auto in the game. Now finally for barrels, we have the most unique barrel. This is the Charge Amp barrel, which effectively converts this into a sniper or shotgun. And the way this works is you hold down the trigger to charge up the gun, and then when you release the trigger, this is when the gun will fire. If you don't charge up to a certain threshold, it's going to take 4 to 5 shots to kill, and it'll fire effectively in semi-auto with a fairly slow fire rate, and that's not ideal. Your time to kill is not competitive if you do that. However, if you hold that charge for about 600 milliseconds or more, that's what I was able to calculate based on hand testing, then you get a 1-shot kill potential anywhere in the body, at least within the maximum damage range. And that makes for a very unique and interesting gun in this game. Now, when it comes to my thoughts on this, if you are getting into a gunfight and then reacting and starting to charge up the gun, you aren't going to stand a chance. You'll likely be dead long before you have the ability to charge up that shot. So you really have to be pre-charging this right before you feel like you're about to get into a gunfight. So as you're about to round a corner, or if you know somebody is about to push you around a corner, then you want to start charging that shot up. And in that case, if you manage to do that, you get an instant kill on that enemy player. And therefore, this one really comes down to how you play it rather than it just being instantly powerful on its own. Now, unfortunately, one of the biggest downsides with this particular barrel is the fact that as you're holding up that charged shot, you will be showing up as a red dot on the minimap for enemy players in real time. So they'll be able to track you perfectly on that minimap, and they'll know exactly when you're going to come around that corner. And since there isn't an option for a suppressor on the EX1, you just have to deal with this. And therefore, if you're using this, I definitely recommend using counter UAVs in order to maximize your effectiveness with this. And you generally don't want to just be walking around the entire map holding a charged shot. You want to be thinking about when you're charging and when you're not charging that shot in order to gain the most advantages without exposing yourself on the minimap unnecessarily. And with that, that is going to wrap it up for the barrels. Now I just wanted to have a very brief look at the magazine attachments. Technically they're batteries, but it's still called the magazine section in the gunsmith. And these are fairly straightforward and self-explanatory in the menus, but I did want to show you the range chart that also shows the time to kill potentials, because some of these do alter our rate of fire a little bit. So you guys can just see that for yourself and combine that with the in-game menus to make the right decisions when it comes to these. There's no point in going into any more detail with these individually, but I did also want to include 2 of the muzzle attachments that directly impact time to kill because they both affect our fire rate and or our damage values. And you can see here with the coil amp, this one massively reduces our range potential, which kind of sucks, but within that shorter range potential, we do get a better time to kill. However, beyond that, we get a significantly worse time to kill potential. So generally not a great choice unless you're playing super up close and personal with this. And then with the disc trim, you can see it increases our range value, but it does harm our time to kill up close. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for all of the stats that I feel are important to mention with this gun. Now let's get into some excellent attachment combinations. And I've got a few different ones here since you can build this gun in so many different ways. The first one I've got for you guys is my all-arounder, and this is using the standard fire mode, so we're not going semi-auto or burst or anything. We've got that steady laser stream. And with this, we're using that instant grat barrel. This is the one that completely eliminates charge up time. And then I just put on some other attachments to help balance out accuracy with handling and mobility. Now, this one doesn't have the most amazing aim down sight time or anything, but the nice thing about this gun is you can start hip firing into aim down sight without really hurting yourself at all, unlike with other guns where you generally don't want to do that beyond really close ranges. Overall, I think this is a really solid way to run this gun. It's super versatile. You can hold your own up close as well as at a distance just fine. And I definitely recommend giving it a shot if you want that steady laser stream. Next up, I did want to share my semi-auto build with you guys. So this one, we're obviously using the semi-auto barrel. We've got the slate reflector on there, titanium anchor stock, the ion hand stop, the Royal PV cell reserve for our battery, the fabric grip, we've got frenzy as our proficiency, and then on hand for our kit. And this is just a great way to run it in semi-auto. I've definitely found some great success with this. Our range value is very, very solid, as well as our time to kill, as long as you can hit that fire rate cap. And if you do have a decent trigger finger, you should likely find a lot of success with this. Now finally, I did want to share a sniper / shotgun build with this gun. So we are using that charge amp barrel where you have to charge it up by holding the trigger and then release it to fire the shot. And with this, it's going to be a one-shot kill anywhere in the body out to 100 meters with the way that we've got this built. So effectively, any line of sight that you'll find in this game, it will be a one-shot kill as long as you're charging up your shot, which I always recommend. Don't use this in semi-auto unless you're absolutely panicked and you just need to. With this, it's extremely stable and accurate. It has excellent hipfire, so you can hipfire with this up close, or you can charge it for a long-range snipe on somebody. But the big thing to keep in mind here is you will always be appearing on the minimap anytime you have a shot charging or charged up ready to fire. As a result, like I said earlier, I definitely pair this with the counter UAV kill streak, as well as the jammer field upgrade. I think that's also a great complement to this particular build. And as long as you're pre-charging this gun effectively, where you're not holding that charge for too long, but you're making sure you pre-charge before the enemy sees you, you will likely find a ton of success with this. And at the end of the day, it's also just a fun way to play the game, because up until now, we haven't had anything like this in the game, and it just changes how you approach things, which is a nice change of pace at this point. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the brand new EX1 laser gun. As for my thoughts on this, I think I've already said this before. Obviously, it's ridiculous in this setting. It doesn't really fit into a World War II game, but it's also the last season of Vanguard. Vanguard's coming to its realistic life cycle end right now, and at that point, give us anything. That's kind of my mindset on it. And I do like the fact that this is offering a ton of unique and new ways to play the game, and I think that's far better than just adding another regular assault rifle that performs just like all the other assault rifles in the game. Personally, I love using this with the base version of the gun where it's just that steady laser stream like that first class that I shared, as well as using that charged shot as well, because you can use that as a shotgun or a sniper, and I just love the dynamic of having to make sure you charge that at the right time. Now, of course, that is just my opinion, and I do want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What are you guys thinking about this gun? First up, setting-wise, do you really care that there's a laser gun in World War II? And then second, just performance-wise, what do you think about the fact that this allows you to play in so many different and unique ways? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.